Hello everyone, good morning to you all. Today we will be discussing about theft. Theft is defined under section 378 and 379 is the penultimate provision for theft. Now we will be discussing about introductory part of that, then the meaning, then essentials or the ingredients of theft, then the leading cases and the punishment. Now next thing is what is the introductory part of theft. Theft will be covered under offenses against property. There are so many offenses like theft, extortion, robbery, dacoity, criminal misappropriation, criminal breach of trust. So one of the major offenses is theft. Now what do you mean by theft? Theft is defined under section 378 of IPC, and any person intending to take any movable property without honesty or out of the possession of any person without that individual's consent moves that property in order to take such taking is said to commit theft. Now we'll be moving by the gist of the ingredients. The very important thing, there are five essentials or five ingredients of theft. The very first essential is dishonest intention. Second, movable property. Third one is taking that property from the owner. Fourth one is from the possession of any person without the consent. And the fifth one is moving. You are taking the property with and you are moving that property without the permission of the owner. Now moving further. For any offense, we are required to prove two things mainly. First is mens rea, second is actus reus. The very first point is mens rea because in every case we have to prove the mens rea. Mens rea means the malafidness or the guilty mind of the accused. If you are not able to prove the first point, or that is the malafide, so you will uh, you will not get into the offenses. So you have to prove the bad intention of that very person. So the very first thing, dishonest intention. Now intention can be good or bad, but whenever we are adding dishonest with the intention, that means we are only talking about malafidness or we are only talking about bad intention. And dishonest, this word dishonest is defined under section 24 of IPC, and 24 is talking about two things mainly. First is wrongful gain and second is wrongful loss, and both the things, wrongful gain and wrongful loss, are defined under section 23 of IPC. 23 of IPC. Now what do you mean by wrongful gain and wrongful loss? If suppose I am taking the property of Mr. A without the consent, so obviously I am gaining something, I am getting something, so that is the example of wrongful gain. But in the wrongful loss, what is to be there? If suppose I am taking the property of Mr. A and I am delivering that property to a beggar. Suppose I have stolen a piece of bread from the shopkeeper and I have given that bread to a beggar. Undoubtedly I am not getting anything, but that person is losing something. Obviously beggar is getting, but ultimately the thing is I am not getting anything, but hey, shopkeeper is losing that thing. So that's why either of the point we have to prove. It's not mandatory, we are required to prove both the things in a single case. So this is the wrongful gain and wrongful loss, and both the things will be covered by dishonest as mentioned under section 24 of IPC. So this is the very first essential of theft, and this proves bad intention. Now moving further, second essential and the very important essential, that is movable property. Now the thing is, what do you mean by movable? Movable is defined under section 22 of IPC. The things which can be easily moved from one place to another, one thing. Second thing, what can be added in that? Likewise, a tree is standing, and whenever we have cut the tree is severe from the earth. At that very time, that property becomes movable. Now, a very interesting question to you, that suppose water is flowing in the river. If I say एक दरिया है, दरिया में पानी बह रहा है, what is that? Whether that property is movable or immovable. This is the question which is to be investigated. So the important thing is, if suppose everyone is moving towards Haridwar and we are taking the water from the Ganga. Now, whenever we have taken that water from Ganga, whether that water becomes movable or immovable, what do you say? Now the answer is, whenever we have contained that water into a bucket, into glass, into any bottle, at that very moment, whenever we have converted the capacity of that water, at that very moment that property becomes movable. And if the water is following with the river or following in the lake or anything, that is immovable property. Moving further, if suppose everyone is having the fans in the houses, and if the fan is attached to the roof, that is immovable property. And the time when that fan is detached from the roof, that becomes movable. That is very interesting thing about movable or immovable. But here we are only covering movable property, not immovable property. Because for the immovable property, an act is there, that is TPA, Transfer of Property Act, but here only we will be discussing about movable property. Okay. Next is that property we have to have taken from the possession of the owner. Now the next essential is this. First is we have to collect the property or from the possession of the owner. Always keep in mind, theft is only applicable on the possession. So here I have to discuss about possession and ownership. So undoubtedly possession will be covered under ownership, but if suppose Mr. A is there and Mr. A has taken any property from me for suppose 2 days, and now from the possession of Mr. A, that property is stolen by Mr. X suppose. Now obviously I can file a case, but now my question is whether Mr. A can file a case or not. Undoubtedly he can file a case, because whenever the property has been stolen, the possession of Mr. A was existing. So undoubtedly I and Mr. A both can file the case. So theft is only applicable on possession. Undoubtedly ownership also, but possession. And very interesting thing, a jurisprudential aspect is there with the possession. A maxim you may say, and very important thing, that possession covers 9 elements of ownership. Obviously 10th element is the title deed itself, ownerships. But the prima facie, if a person is having anything, if suppose you are having a phone, obviously I'll think that you will be the owner of that phone. Prima facie, this comes in my mind. So that's why the major portion among that elements will be covered by possession. So we have to take the property from the possession of that person, that we may call that person as owner or the possessor. The next is obviously without the consent, because it's very important, essential, and without that obviously theft cannot be occurred. Now consent is the very important factor. Without the consent of the owner, now consent is of two types, express or implied. So both the consent will not be there. If suppose I'm just nodding my neck, so it means I have given you the permission impliedly, no need to be express. So in this category also consent was there, so no theft will be there ultimately. So if you want to prove any charge of theft, then both the consents you have to prove, that is not to be taken up. So the consent, two types, express or implied. Express means you are expressly saying anything by the mouth or by any written communication, you are expressly admitting or denying anything. And impliedly by your conduct, that is mentioned under section 8 of Indian Evidence Act. By your conduct you are saying that okay, agree, you may take it. So this is the thing with the consent part. Now let's start the next or the last essential, that is moving the property. That is the actus reus for the theft, that is moves. You can see in your barracks also the word moves is there. Moves means moving of the property, and that is the actus reus. Actus reus for this offense, that is theft. So that is very essential ingredient, that is moving of the property. If you are not moving the property, that is not theft. For moving under this offense, that is theft, you have to have prove this essential, that is moves or moving of the property. Let's take an example. Suppose a watch is lying here and I am just covering that watch with a piece of paper, or suppose by handkerchief. Now I am just putting that paper or that piece of cloth over that watch, but I am not moving that watch. What is it? What do you say? If I am not moving that property, obviously that will not be the theft. So that is attempt to theft. And whenever at the later stage, whenever I'll just move that property from the original place, at that very time that thing becomes move, or actus reus will be completed. So that will be moving of the property. Fifth essential will be satisfied and the every essential will be satisfied. So moving is equally important, and moving with the time. Time is, if you are just protecting that thing but you are not moving, this is very important. If you are protecting that thing but you are not moving, you just want to fool the others. You have just put a paper or put anything so that next person will just think that that property is no more. So that movement is covering for essentials, but moving is not there. So unless and until you will not move that property, that will not be completed. So for moving under this offense, you have to move that property. Next thing is, now two leading cases are there. First one is Pyarelal Bhargava versus State of Rajasthan, and the second one is KN Mehra versus State of Rajasthan. Now the first case. First case is dealing with a company. Actually, two companies are there. Suppose company A and B. Now a person is working under company A. Now that person has stolen the secret documents of the company and handed over that same document to the next company, the manager of that next company. Now the thing is, he has given that document only for certain period of time, not for 1 month, not for 1 year. So temporary, if you are taking that property for a temporary period, whether that will be covering or that will be fulfilling the essential of theft, this is the important question. So the Honorable Supreme Court in this case, it was held out that even if you are taking the property for just a minute, then also every ingredient will be satisfied, because the secret information related to that company has been shared with the next person. So undoubtedly that will be an offense. Time period is immaterial. Next case is KN Mehra versus State of Rajasthan. In this case, what was happened? In this case, this is the case related to the aeroplanes, and the pilot is there, and obviously the duty of the pilot is to fly the plane. Now he has just with the coverage or with just with the mind that I'll fly the plane without the permission of the authorities. So he was in the enjoyment, one of his friend, and they have just flight that plane without the permission. And now at that time the plane was crashed anyhow, and they have to suffer the loss. So now the thing is whether the taking of that property again, because the guidelines are not there, obviously they are appointed for that purpose, but for that act they have not taken the permission, and without the permission they did everything. Now they can also be made liable for theft. So the again honorable Supreme Court, it was held out that they will be liable for theft. Now some other examples are there also, like mistake of fact. You may also relate these things, the topic of theft, with the mistake of fact. If suppose I have taken the property that belongs to other mistakenly, suppose दोनों चीजें बिल्कुल सेम थी, and in the good faith I have just taken the property of that person in the belief that belongs to me, can I also be liable for theft? Now we are again look into the every ingredients. So the very first essential is dishonest intention. In this situation, in this case, I was not having the dishonest intention, bad intention. That was just in the good faith, nothing else. So that will not create any offense of theft. Okay, now moving further with the punishment. This punishment clause or the section which is dealing with the punishment, that is 379, and the punishment is of 3 years, either fine or both. So